everybody, Joseph Rothschild here, aka MBT, and time for Slop. I'm currently away commentating the Alestral's World Tournament. If you want to see that, type Alestral's World Tournament into the YouTube search bar. But as a result, I had to bank some content before I left, and I thought it would be a great opportunity to do a tier list about something I love speaking on: alternate formats. It's been a long time since the TCG was the only way to play the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game, and I thought it'd be interesting to explore the myriad of different forms alt formats have taken in the years since they started becoming popular. I asked for your feedback about what formats you'd like to see represented here today, and I got a lot of feedback, including some feedback about formats that I have never played and unfortunately cannot pass judgment on. But we still got a ton of them. I have subdivided them into three little buckets. We've got Time Wizard formats. These are retro formats that are played either in person or on Format Library. Official Yu-Gi-Oh! Attempts at an alternate format. This is things that were sanctioned or currently are sanctioned by Konami. And explicitly community creations. These are things the community came up with, some of them caught, and some of them didn't. I've got 5 tiers here. First up is Please Play This, a format so good you should drop what you're doing and play a game. Definitely great for formats that have cemented their status in legend, but still bounce off some people. Worth a shot for formats with pluses and minuses that may or may not vibe with you. If you like, for formats that, if your playgroup is interested in, you might as well build something for it. And avoid for formats I probably wouldn't play again. But first, this video is sponsored by Raycon. If you're anything like me, a weird Peter Pan-style man-child who spends all day in Discord VCs, then it pays to have control over the rate at which your fragile post-30 years deteriorate. I guess if you're the kind of person that goes to the Gaim, these could be helpful too. Frankly, it's a market we can do without. Today I'm here to talk to you about Raycon's bone conduction headphones. These use off-ear audio to send vibrations through your bones, letting you stay in tune for the world around you. These puppies come with 13 hours of battery life, also known as one single Farfa collab, plus a quality that rivals the big audio brands at half the cost. I've been using them for months, and I have no problem hawking them to you. But if you get them and hate them, don't worry. They come with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Go to buyraycon.com/MBTBC to get 20% off. Now, I know that's a little hard to understand, so I'll run it back for you. MBTBC. The BC stands for bone conduction, or before Max C. Again, thanks to Raycon for sponsoring, and now back to the video. And we'll begin with the granddaddy of them all, GOAT format. For a very long time, GOAT format was the explicit way to play something that wasn't advanced. I remember almost a decade of people trekking to locals alongside a GOAT format deck just in case people wanted to jam games in between rounds. To that end, I feel like it probably should be in Please Play This, but I have a really hard time recommending GOAT format to people in the modern era. That's because GOAT format has kind of simplified down. While during COVID there was a renaissance of GOAT format players and content, what those people found out pretty early is that GOAT format is secretly a one-deck format, and that deck, Chaos Turbo, is head and shoulders better than anything else in the format with the single exception of Warrior. A deck that just aims to stick a guy and then Trap Dust Shoot Solemn Judgment you out of the game, and a deck that aims to just kill you from any position are kind of frustrating to be the only 2 decks that are worth playing. For that reason, I think I'm gonna have to put GOAT format in worth a shot. I admit I have a lot of fun playing GOAT format. If you watch the King of Games video that Gage, Paul, and I did as a team on Alex's channel, you can see that there's a lot of strategic depth to the format that I really appreciate. That said, I really have seen it bounce off a lot of people of late. Next up is Reaper format. Played for a really short period of time when we hit it in the history of Yu-Gi-Oh! Reaper format took off as an alternative to GOAT that had some powerful and interesting cards that weren't available in GOAT. Strike Ninja is my personal favorite deck from the format, but stuff like Lekungo with the Mother Grizzly Water package. Dead Rat was just an absolutely killer creature swap deck that played recruiters. But unfortunately, as the format developed, it became pretty clear pretty quick that this did not really have what it takes to last. The best deck by a country mile was Monarch Cyberstein, a deck that aimed to tribute summon a Monarch and then last will out a Cyberstein. And the irritating part of that deck is that historically it wasn't particularly popular because Stein was so expensive. So you had all these people playing a format that was totally anachronistic and warped around cards that people just didn't have. And the deck was admittedly much better than anything else. This was a fun dalliance for a couple of months, but I wouldn't go back. And for that, I'm going to put it in if you like. I know there are still some people who enjoy this format. I'm not one of them. Next up is Edison. Not too much to say about Edison. You probably should drop what you're doing and put together an Edison deck. There's a reason this format has become the standard bearer for alternate formats, that Konami felt it was such a threat to the landscape of alternate formats that they could not release something like Genesis until this was excised from the room. Edison's the only format ever that has a parallel infrastructure to the YCS scene that is successful. It's unthinkable to me, at a time when the TCG is as good as it is, that hundreds of people are beating down doors and selling out stadiums to play this format. Be it through the RBET or the LDS series, it's just really incredible. It's a format that has aged fantastically as well. So many new decks and strategies have been invented since people started taking a look at Edison, and those decks and strategies continue to evolve in a cyclical way. There are metagames that develop in Edison format just based on what people are playing. I just love it. I could not be happier with the existence of this format, and it's going to be really hard to get anything above it in the Please Play this category. Tangu. Tangu is good. Whenever we did the Vegas 3v3, I was the individual who ended up having to play Tangu format, and I'll tell you right now, I really did enjoy my time in the format. I think, unfortunately, there's a pretty low ceiling on how popular the format can get, however. Two reasons for that. The first and most frustrating part is, it is just going to be unfavorably compared to Edison. Like, the pace of play is pretty similar. You get Xyz, which changes the composition of the extra deck, but you're still summoning with just about the same frequency. And the second thing is that the top strategies are kind of frustrating. Unlike Edison, which continues to evolve month on month, Tangu has had like the top 3 or 4 decks figured out for a couple of years now. And it's really embarrassing that the top one is Tangu Plant. Like, yeah. But I'm just going to put it indefinitely great. Redo. Man, I don't know what's going on with this format. I don't like this format at all. I've played it a number of times, not just on stream with Gage and the boys. This format bounced off me like almost nothing has. I find almost all the top decks frustrating. Like, I have to imagine that this format is being propped up by people who just want to play Chaos Dragons, because I don't see any other sell to playing this format. You can play Wind Up, you can play Inzektor, you can play Macro Rabbit, and boy, do they play Macro Rabbit. Oh, but don't worry, the format's evolved. People are now playing Geargia everywhere. Joy of joys. I don't like this format. It's very strange to me that it seems to be picking up among the Time Wizard population. A couple of non-Konami circuits that are looking to differentiate themselves from the already popular power players in Edison are running these events. I can't believe they're firing, man. I do not like this format. I'll put it in if you like, because it is fun on occasion, but boy, am I not a fan. Hat format. It's worth a shot. I played a pretty significant amount of hat format. It's cool that it's evolved from the way it was played historically, but I just don't really find its gameplay compelling. The actual factual hat deck is pretty miserable to actually engage with. There's a bunch of other options in the format, but they are big, sexy combo decks that I would just play advanced or maybe like Duelist Alliance format if I wanted to face down. I don't know. I know a lot of people are invested in this endless search for the third Time Wizard format after GOAT and Edison, but I just don't buy it for hat. With that, let's move to some of the official Konami mechanisms trying to get people to play something that isn't TCG, and we'll begin with Genesis. Genesis is going indefinitely great. I don't understand what is going on with this format. I think that Yu-Gi-Oh! Players are just addicted to being negative. And I understand I'm part of that problem, okay. But every single time anything happens in Genesis, suddenly it becomes the death of the format. Like, oh my god, that Dire List was legal for 2 weeks, Genesis is dead. Oh my god, Droll went from 25 to 20, Genesis is dead. I'm sick of hearing Genesis is dead from people on Twitter who do not play Genesis. This format is very much alive, and the decks within it are very interesting. I like Genesis a lot, and I think the parallel tournament structure means I'm going to be devoting a majority of my time at YCS's to it for the foreseeable future. For me, the sell of this format is that the games are Yu-Gi-Oh! You are playing with powerful new cards that do exceptionally strong linear things, but strength of non-archetypal non-engine is just so much lower that you are often butting heads with respect to your engine versus your opponent's. And to that end, they've made a format that's really interesting, where every deck feels like you're launching these big, sexy haymakers against an opponent who's going to do the same thing on your turn. And in terms of turns, frequently these decks get to 7 or 8, just winning the game on their own terms on each of their own turns to pass back to an opponent who is locked and loaded. I think this format is great. There are some things that irk me. I feel they're a little two-faced about a couple specific floodgates. And I feel like communication, while frequent, isn't as in-depth as I would appreciate, or as it was at the start of the format, the genesis of it. That's why I'm putting it in definitely great instead of please play this. But do check out Genesis, and please just don't listen to people on Twitter talking about how it sucks. Next up is Speed Duel. I don't know. So I want to say that Speed Duel is good. This format came at a time when an alternative to the TCG was functionally unheard of. And they gave Konami of America incredible leeway with this product, not only allowing them to stock really cool starter decks, but also straight up packs. Unfortunately, the format was never really good. The history of this format is marked by a bunch of Tier 0 formats stacked up next to each other. Blue Eyes was the best, Cocoon was the best, Serpent was the best, My Precious Queen was the best, Conflict was the best, TP was the best, the boring-ass Joey skill was the best. And add to that the fact that a significant amount of those packs just had literally 0 playable cards in them. This format was bailed the fuck out by the COVID-era TCG boom, because otherwise we would still be seeing Speed Duel product on shelves. That said, the late Speed Duel editions were really cool. The Battle City box, of course, remains my favorite product for Yu-Gi-Oh! Ever made. So I'll say, if you like, you should check it out. There are still people who play this, by the way. I'm not one of them, but there are. Next up is Battle Pack. I'm going to put Battle Pack in worth a shot. This one is hard to classify. So I am a huge proponent of limited play. I think drafting is the premier way to play any card game. And I applaud Konami not only for trying drafting, but going as in as they did, making a pack specifically for draft and forcing people to play it at YCSs, which I think is really important. The downside is some of these aren't a very fun draft environment. A lot of the battle packs kind of smack of a limited format in its infancy. A lot of these drafts are exceptionally boring. Just a lot of 1800 chunguses looking at each other. And while I can appreciate that Battle Pack 3 tried to resolve the inherent contradiction between the archetypal-ness of Yu-Gi-Oh! And the fact that Limited doesn't let you draft an entire archetype, I just feel like it's sort of cheap and prioritizes a bunch of utility critters that just shouldn't do what they do. That said, I always have fun drafting, so it's worth a shot, and the box is cheap, so if you want to buy some, you might as well. Pegasus Challenge. This was fun as fuck. I'm putting it in definitely great and not please play this because there's no way to play this anymore. This was a short-lived YCS side event at events where the VA for Pegasus showed up. You'd enter a tournament and then he would get on the PA system and say stuff like, if you have a Zodiac monster, send your entire board to the graveyard. It was really, really fun. It wasn't like competitive, but it was fun as hell. Rivalry of Warlords. Please play Rivalry of Warlords. Rivalry of Warlords, I think, resolves the lack of limited play in Yu-Gi-Oh! It is a sealed deck format in which you are given a pre-con associated with one Yu-Gi-Oh! Archetype. You're given a couple of sheets of paper describing how to play the deck and thrown into a pod with other people who have done the same. I've heard people say their frustrations with Rivalry of Warlords, but mostly I think it is a skill issue. People will be like, oh, the decks are just totally unbalanced, and then they'll go on to describe a deck that is like best in format that they just played incorrectly because they were using advanced brain. Or they'll be like, I didn't know this deck had this. For people who want to get really good at Rivalry of Warlords, I have fantastic news. All the deck lists are posted online in advance. I know some people who like ground the fuck out of this by building the decks and just practicing. And man, this format is great. If you have extra time at a YCS, do try out Rivalry. It's a ton of fun. Gen Duels is going to be the first one in a void. This one's just totally irritating. So, I've talked about it a number of times, but Generation Duels was a short-lived experiment by Konami where you had 5 ban lists. Each ban list was associated with a different era of Yu-Gi-Oh! And your deck had to conform to that ban list in order to be played. Like, you could play Pot of Greed, Graceful Charity if you were representing DM, but you couldn't play most effect monsters. There were a lot of really cool things you could do with this format. I remember playing a Monarch deck that used all the powerful Monarch spell traps, but Terror King Salmon as the Monarch, and then got to play like Graceful Charity, Pot of Greed. But a lack of balancing meant that the best thing you could do was ignore as much of the ban list as possible. I say this all the time, but the 5Ds ban list was specifically designed to box out synchro summoning, so people just played True Draco with the power cards found in 5Ds and wiped the floor with everybody. And it just wasn't updated event to event. They totally forgot about it. They were still running these when Vrains was out, but there was no Vrains list. Like, come on. Next up is Deckmaster. I don't think a game of Deckmaster has ever been played in official Konami capacity. So this was one of the formats that was listed on the now infamous sheet of formats that included Time Wizard. And Konami clearly threw these together in an afternoon and were like, go nuts, this is just a mechanism for locals to sanction bullshit. And this format is bullshit. It's meant to be Commander. It's sort of like the way that the duels in the virtual world arc were structured, but based on the rule set that they devised, there's just no way it's ever going to be fun. You can play Last Warrior, you can play Spell Canceller, you can play Jinzo. Their effect is always active. You just lock down your opponent from doing fucking anything the whole game. Really bad. Really not good. Beta format. I'd avoid this as well. This was a short-lived side event at YCS's, and the reason it's on here is because it's functionally just Junior Journey rules. There are some slight differences, but it was meant to use the junior rules that were developed at the advent of Yu-Gi-Oh! In a modern capacity, and just like Junior Journey, it immediately was broken. There's a reason they don't run this anymore. I'm going to put Common Charity in If You Like. Common Charity, another one of those formats that was on the sheet. Really unfortunate what happened with this one. The unfortunate truth is that this format was sort of fucked by Konami's reprint policy. Like, I appreciate that any powerful card that commands a huge price tag is going to be reprinted in common within 1 year, but that means that, like, every card ever is going to be available in this format. There are some meaningful differences between it and the TCG that make a whole different swath of decks playable. Largely it's stuff like while starters and utility monsters are at common, they very rarely print finishers at common. But still, the popularity of this thing has totally waned, and it's because it's just a frustrating format to engage with that changes so radically based on releases. Also, it doesn't help that Konami never gave any answers about, like, questionable commons. Common Charity heads will remember the Portuguese OTS issue. Next up is pre-release. Yeah, pre-release ain't great. I think pre-release is interesting in theory. Making Yugists play sealed deck is something that we should be doing. Limited formats are good. It's fun to play in limited. But for years now, Konami has been designing sets that are just not designed to be played sealed. Almost every format these days has some card that totally takes over the game available at common, and the games end up being determined by who found the most of that card. It's no wonder most OTSs just play an advanced tournament for the pre-release prizing. We've got a couple here from Master Duel. First up is NR. NR is really good. The big downside to NR is that the festival just isn't held that often. But just like Common Charity, it is good in that a lot of utility critters are printed, a lot of consistency tools are available, but finishers largely aren't. And as a result, not only do the decks change, but the gameplay changes. There just aren't very many negates available at NR. I love this format. When the festival came around the first time, it was some of the most fun I've ever had playing Yu-Gi-Oh! When it came back the second time, I had a blast pivoting between dozens of different decks during the week it was available. Importantly, there is a community of individuals on Discord that maintain NR, and their decision-making relative to the ban list is reflected in the updates that Konami puts to the NR Festival when they rerun it. That's neat, that's nice, it's a little meeting of the minds that I can really get behind. Duel Trial 2025 LP is the fucking best thing ever. They did this in 2024 as well, but the 3-day Duel Trial where you have 2025 LP is just phenomenal. Everyone's playing both burn and anti-burn. And as a result, you end up playing like this weird fucked up version of Go Fish where the games last like 30 seconds, but they're super interactive and funny as all hell. Like, obviously, I don't think this format has like any sort of staying power, but I think you play it for a totally different reason that you play TCG. It's like a fun laugh that lasts 10 minutes. And that's good enough for me to put it into the please play this category. When it comes back, set an alarm. Finally, we have made it to the community-invented formats, and we're going to begin with Yu-Gi-Oh! I wouldn't play Yu-Gi-Oh! If you're unfamiliar with Yu-Gi-Oh!, it was one of the first attempts to make an alternative format by the community, and it didn't go over very well. It lasted an extremely short period of time. There were, like, side events for it, and I think ARG events, but I might just be talking out of my ass here. I didn't find the gameplay particularly fun. While I can admit that the gameplay was noticeably different than the TCG, I didn't think it was in ways that were particularly good. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is also one of the least best preserved alternate formats online, so if you are a person who played Yu-Gi-Oh! When it was around like I was, you really should do your best to write as much as you remember down. Next up is Trinity. I gotta put Trinity in definitely great. I know that is shocking. I'm gonna put it way up in definitely great too. I'll be honest with you, despite its size, I think as one of the early breakout alt formats, Trinity kind of set the stage for the way we make alternative formats today. And I'll say this, it was fucking fun to play. I played so much Trinity in like 2017. If you're unfamiliar with Trinity, it works like this. It's a Highlander format with a minimum deck size of 30. But for every 5 cards you go over 30, you can play either a duplicate of an individual card in your deck, 2 cards on the half-point list, or 1 card on the 1-point list. In this way, you trade like a little bit of consistency for a power card or something integral to your combo that's otherwise unrepeatable. And the final thing is you could only perform a summon 3 times per turn. So turns were short, they weren't big combo fuckfests. The lasting effects of Trinity are, of course, a proof of concept that there is an infrastructure for alt formats, and their floodgate list. This deck had a very specific philosophy when it came to ban lists, and banned literally every card that could be construed as a floodgate. It's got like 400 floodgates on this list. I'll tell you, I didn't miss any of them. What kind of doomed Trinity was that it was always running up against new set releases. Every new pack, Konami would release a card that would totally take over the game, and it would be a huge problem in this format. So it felt like not only were you battling the metagame that would develop as a result of the tournaments they held, you were also constantly battling actual Konami. I think there's people who still play this. More power to them. Highlander, man. Oh, Highlander was something else too. Highlander, short for Historical Highlander, was also an only one-ofs format. But when you played this format, you would align yourself with 2 years. 1 pre-Duelist alliance and 1 post-Duelist alliance. If I recall correctly, you could play any cards released in that year. And each year had a separate ban list. It's like you could play a powerful Chaos deck from like 2004, and then also play like Thunder Dragon. You'd bring both an old and a new deck to a match, and then whoever won the die roll could either decide to go first or decide to play the old or the new deck. And then that would change depending on who lost. In order to win a match, you'd usually have to win both a new match and an old one. It was super fun and lasted for a couple of years, but maintaining like 20 ban lists was just too much work. I'm gonna put domain format indefinitely great. So I have not played as much domain format as I think I need to have to say anything super definitive. I will say this, the community that has erupted around domain format clearly really enjoys it. It is unquestionably the fixed version of Deckmaster, and they're doing a pretty good job selling it. Of the games I've played, some have felt completely frustrating and some have felt really, really good. But I have the same feelings about Commander, and a lot of the stuff that irritates me about Commander is not present in domain format. If you want to try multiplayer, I think domain is not a bad way to do it. Squirrel format, I'm putting in please play this. This format is so damn fun. Invented by Thomas Rose as a way to kill time between matches, Squirrel format is a deck with a simple premise. Every single card in the list can be answered by a different card in the list. It's a pre-constructed deck of cards that are mostly available in the battle pack. You buy 2 of them and then play an opponent. And it is just so fucking fun. Shouts out to Georgie for introducing this to me, but I have played like hundreds of matches of Squirrel format, and to this day, I find interactions that I enjoy. It's so named because the best card in the deck is Watt Squirrel. This will cost you like $5. Really do buy a couple of Squirrel decks and just keep them around in case you want to jam some Yu-Gi-Oh with people who are not as invested in watching you do a Mitsurugi combo as you might be. I'm going to put Hasty Horse in worth a shot. So I have a lot of fun playing Hasty Horse, but I will admit it does bounce off people. Some people play it and go, I don't play Yu-Gi-Oh to get into back row wars. And I understand that. Yu-Gi-Oh is the big sexy combo game, playing 55 turns of draw go so that you can meticulously engineer a scenario where your horse gets through everything is a tough sell for some people. For me, it is pure bliss. I've had people at events come up to me and tell me not only that they've built Hasty Horse, but they've innovated upon it, and I appreciate everyone who has done that. You've come up with some really, really good changes. Maybe that's worth a video in and of itself. I'm going to put Progression Series in if you like. So when the Progression Series first came out, it inspired a bunch of other people to play their own Progression Series, both as content on YouTube, but also as a way to have fun with their friends. And I will say this, if you want to have fun with your friends and need an excuse for all of you to get in the same place at the same time, this is a great way to do it. I remember the old Playoffs crew and I used to get together every week, and when Progression Playoffs ended, we said, we'll still make time to see each other online. Of course that didn't happen, we're adults. So it is very valuable as a tool to hang out with friends. but the actual competitive aspect of it is not great. The first few sets are just comparing numbers. Once you get to Invasion of Chaos, everything changes. And because all the GX sets suck, you'll just be playing your deck from Invasion of Chaos forever. Things like the Blackwing debacle can very easily happen, which means every single person who plays Progression Series invents some sort of banning system, and that system inevitably has flaws because it's totally untested. But that's fine. That's fine. There's an old prof video that speaks to me. Someone calls him and talks about some dog shit format they invented on the fly. The two of them come up with an interesting deck and they think to themselves, is this gonna last? And the answer is it doesn't need to last beyond the night that you go out and play. Anything that gets you excited to deck build and hang out with your friends is worth exploring. And so that's why I put it in if you like. On that note, Masochist is fucking miserable, man. Okay, so I want to preface this by saying, to Simo and Hardleg, Masochist is really, really good content. From the perspective of someone watching someone else play Masochist, it is very enjoyable. But playing it is a fucking nightmare. First off, the way the Master Packs work, you are just never going to get anything resembling a coherent game plan until you get like hundreds of wins in. And secondly, almost all your wins, just by nature of how the Master Duel ladder system works, are gonna be against bots. They're going to be against disconnects. So you spend all day loading into matches hoping you've got an opponent with a microwave going at the same time. So you can maybe pull something relevant. It is just miserable to sit through. It's masochistic. And finally, Celtic Guardian format is so good that it defies any classification on this table. So this is my final take. What do you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Have you had different interactions with these formats? Are there any that aren't on here you'd like to see me explore? Are there any that are on here that you think are vastly over or underrated? And will you please fucking play Genesis? Stop looking at Twitter. Those people do not play the card game. See you next time.